Hi, I'm Mike Elam, and this is BUFORD PUSSER, the other story. Welcome back to BUFORD PUSSER, the other story. Today we're going to talk about moonshining, something that was really prevalent in McNairy County back in the 60s when BUFORD PUSSER was sheriff. But first I wanted to address a few questions that I've received since I started these videos and written my book by the same name, BUFORD PUSSER, the other story. One question was, are you related to anyone in this story? And the answer to that is no. Neither side. I've made a lot of acquaintances from both the law enforcement community as well as the state line, but I'm related to no one and have no connection with anyone in this story. Another question is, why are you trying to destroy the Pusser legend? And the quick answer to that is, I'm not trying to destroy the legend. I'm only trying to find the truth. When I saw Walking Tall, I became an instant BUFORD PUSSER fan. I didn't believe everything I saw in the movies. On the other hand, I did see some things that made me question the story, and I simply wanted to learn more about what really happened and started looking into the story. And that's brought me to where I am now with, the other story. Another question was, why do other Facebook pages require a membership? Some do, some don't. And I think the reason for that is some just know who the agitators are and, want to keep that to a minimum. On the other hand, you have the Pusser fan pages, which anyone that says anything against BUFORD PUSSER gets banned from those pages. I think the reason for that is they know that the truth is out there and they just don't want to give anyone an opportunity to spread it. So, that's my answer to that. I have an open membership. Yes, I have occasionally banned people, but for specific reasons. For instance, if someone comes onto my page and they make a lot of statements but refuse to back up what they say, or they refuse to engage in conversation, they're not benefiting the people on the page. They're not benefiting the page itself. So, I figure that those people are just protesters that are there to disrupt things. And when I say conversations, we like to talk about BUFORD PUSSER. We like to share opinions, and we like to know what everybody else actually knows about the true story. The people that get banned are the people that just come on there and want to say that Buford Pusser is a hero and you have no right in trying to destroy his legend. And then when you ask them a question like, well, name a state line club or establishment that Buford shut down, or name a state liner that he sent to prison, and they just keep repeating their same questions, never answering your own. So that's the reason, why some pages have closed memberships, is simply because they want to totally control the dialogue, whereas on my page, we want to have a conversation. Another question was, do you live in McNairy County? And the answer to that is no. I live in Northwest Arkansas, about 400 miles away. Takes me a little while to get over there, and I made several trips to McNairy County to interview people such as that. Met some great folks over there on both sides of the story, the law enforcement community and the state line side. And if you're honest with yourself and you see what both have to say, you will see that most of their opinions and most of what they know coincide with each other. They're not diametrically opposed like you think they would be. Another question, were you in law enforcement? Yes, I was a deputy sheriff in Benton County, Arkansas. I left that, went to the private sector where I was director of loss prevention for a major Arkansas retailer. Both jobs included a lot of looking into things, investigating, if you will. So, yes, I come from the law enforcement community, and I think that has helped me to actually look at this story and find what's really there. Another person writes, are you just doing this to sell books? Well, the quick answer to that one is no. I've been on social media with this story, both sharing what I know and trying to learn more from people who were there. I've been doing that for about 20 years, both on Yahoo and Facebook. Here a couple of years ago, I had people that kept asking me to write a book about what I know, put it all in order so that they can just read in chronological order what actually happened in McNairy County. I didn't do it until I had a bout of cancer. I had to have a surgery that laid me up for quite a while. I had my surgery on January 15th of 2020. And as you know, COVID hit just shortly thereafter. So while I was recovering from surgery, I couldn't get out because I was so exposed to whatever from the cancer surgery, the chemo, the radiation that goes along with it. My immune system was weak. So I sat down finally to write the book. And frankly, it was therapy for me. It gave me something to do, gave me a way to occupy my time, keep my mind off of the cancer, the surgery, the radiation, and everything. And no, I didn't lose my hair from the radiation. I got the same amount now as I did before the surgery. But at any rate, that being said, as we run across more questions, I'll be happy to post those, answer them as best I can. But what we're here to talk about today is moonshining. Like I say, it was a really prevalent part of the Pusser story. Lots of moonshining took place, and there were different reasons that different people would moonshine. Some of them, they just wanted to do it because they couldn't afford to go to a liquor store and, pay the high price for liquor that was purchased there. You have to keep in mind when you delve into the entire Buford Pusser story that McNairy County was poor. It was economically strained back in the 60s. There weren't very many good paying jobs. Those were far and few between. So that brought you up to the second group of people that and why moonshine was being made. And of course, it was the money that was involved. A lot of people made moonshine to be able to sell it and make good money, something they couldn't do in McNairy County otherwise they didn't feel. The third group I really hope people understand what I'm saying here. The third group involves a group of people who were just desperately poor, and they made moonshine simply to have a way to put food on the family table. They weren't in the business of trying to make great sums of money, but they knew that moonshine would help them get some income. Beyond that, we might talk a little bit about, the cost of making moonshine, since we're into that area. Actually, when I did my research on that in 1967, it cost about $1 to make a gallon of moonshine. You could sell a gallon of moonshine for about $6 to $8. A lot of people would break it down even into smaller quantities. They'd sell a pint for $2, half pint for $1. In places like Memphis and other cities, you would have shot houses, or fun houses as they called them back in the day, that would sell a shot of whiskey for 50 cents. And when they did that, of course, the profitability of a gallon of moonshine just exploded. Making moonshine is an art. There are people that are really successful with making a good moonshine. There are people that will take shortcuts that will put your life in danger. With that being said, all it takes to make moonshine basically is water. You need to have a grain of choice, whether it is corn, barley, rye, wheat shorts, anything like that. You have to have yeast, and yeast is important for fermentation, because when you make moonshine, you have to get that grain where it's fermented in order to have an alcohol substance. And then, of course, there's sugar that's required. Of course, there's a lot of things that you have to have. And like I mentioned earlier, one is water. People question sometimes why that moonshine was made out in the woods. Well, first of all, it was for privacy. But secondly, a lot of areas have creeks that go through the woods, and they needed quantities of water. So, being out in the woods provided you with both privacy and water source. You also had to have certain things like a mash pot or a boiling chamber. You needed something to place your mash in while it fermented. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is that making moonshine is a very time-consuming process. Generally, it can take anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks for your mash to ferment and make the alcohol substance that you're really wanting to distill. It was all about a timing process. You'd make your mash, you're having to get it up to a certain temperature, then bring it back down. All this time, you're stirring it with a big paddle, depending on the size of your still. You're constantly stirring it, and then you pour the mash off and set it aside, making sure you've added your yeast, and you get the fermentation started. Several days or weeks later, it's ready to put back into the still, add a little water. When you bring the temperature up, well, that creates a vapor, and that vapor goes up through the coils and copper coil, and then it finally drips out with an alcohol substance. Now, I'm oversimplifying this, and I understand that because we've only got a limited time to get through this. But, it's important to understand that it's a slow process. When you start getting the drips of moonshine coming from the still into your container, one thing that a lot of people don't know is that that can be very poisonous because it contains a lot of methanol. If you watched, let's say, Real American Hero with Brian Dennehy. You remember in the opening of the movie, it showed him and his deputies chasing down a van that was full of teenagers that had been drinking moonshine. When Buford finally gets them stopped, he realizes that they're in distress. They get them to the hospital. One of the individuals goes blind from the moonshine. That's because of the methanol. It will attack the optic nerve. There were other dangers with moonshine. For instance, a lot of people couldn't afford a copper coil. And so what they would do is find a radiator from a car and run the moonshine through that to get the vapor to condense and finally drop out as a liquid. Now, sounds like a clever idea until you realize that a lot of those radiators contain solder. And as that moonshine, the vapor start going through the radiator, a lot of that solder would deteriorate. And when it did, it would get into the vapor itself, and people could get lead poisoning. Jack Hathcock's father suffered from Jake leg syndrome, and that is a paralysis of the leg and foot. Could be one, could be the other, could be both. So, using an old radiator was dangerous. Plus, you'd also have the danger that they used a radiator straight out of a car that had been driven a lot, had antifreeze in it. And of course, antifreeze, when it comes out, it can cause all sorts of problems. Antifreeze will attack the liver and destroy it. So that was another problem that you had with moonshine. Some moonshiners, in order to get their product to ferment even faster, would dress out a squirrel and throw it in the mash and let it deteriorate with the grain. And of course, I don't know if that caused any health problems, but I don't think I would want to be drinking any moonshine that had a dead squirrel in it. At any rate, like I say, moonshine was really prevalent in McNairy County back in those days. And yes, Buford did shut down a lot of stills, but people wonder where all that moonshine went. McNairy County was only 18,000 people at that time. That includes men, women, and children. And so you wonder, how could such a small population drink so much moonshine? Well, the fact is, a lot of it was made for more or less a commercial use. A lot of it went to Memphis, Tennessee. State revenue officials determined in 1967 that every day in Memphis, between 1,500 and 2,500 gallons of moonshine would be consumed. So somebody was making a lot of moonshine, and it obviously was being done for profit. Not only that, but the state officials traced moonshine made in McNairy County to places like Detroit, Chicago, Akron, Ohio. So it went a little bit of everywhere. Now, you wonder why that people would prefer the moonshine over something that they were more familiar with, that was sold in the liquor store or whatever. And the bottom line was, it was about the taxes. The federal government, for a gallon of distilled spirits at that time, would charge $10.50 a gallon in a tax. Then on top of that, you had state and local taxes, which could tack on another $3. So you're up to a situation where you're producing a gallon of moonshine, and you're doing it for $1, and the federal government's putting a tax, and I should say state and local as well, are putting taxes on there that are $13.50. So, that's the reason why that you had so many people making moonshine, is they just wanted to get around having their product taxed. Now, it is legal to make moonshine. And a lot of people don't understand that, but the fact is, you can make it if you have a fuel permit or a distilled spirits permit. But here again, you have to go buy that from the federal government in order to make moonshine, which ran your cost up. Getting beyond all that, we might talk about, kind of getting back to that, there's two flavors that were said to be made of moonshine, and that's legal and illegal. But as far as Buford was concerned, and where fact and legend kind of split, is because, if you've been to the museum and if you've read many of the Facebook pages, they will tell you that Buford, in his first year in office, shut down 88 stills. However, when I was doing research, I found an article from the McNairy County Independent. It was dated December 31st, 1967. 1965, which was the first calendar year that Buford had been in office. And during that time, he shut down 28 stills. And when the newspaper came out with that story that he'd closed down 28 stills, which was a good number, Buford didn't argue with it. So there's a 60 still disparity in between the legend version and what was actually happening. Now, Judge Clyde Treese, who was a General Sessions Court judge in McNairy County, someone asked him one time if, what happened when Buford was gone and Clifford Coleman took over. And, Judge Treese made the observation that his caseload really didn't change much, that from Dickey through Pusser through Coleman, caseload was all about the same. So it tells you that there was a lot of legend building when the legend tells you that he shut down 88 stills his first year in office, and the records show that he shut down only 28. Now, I'll get back to something else, where this part of the legend. In a USA Today article, Dwana Pusser was being interviewed, and she was asked about Buford having to fight the state line, and she made the comment it wasn't just the state line, it was the Dixie Mafia and also the mob from Detroit. Well, you can go over Buford's FBI file, you can go over Towhead White's FBI file, and you really don't see anything about the Detroit mob that Buford was having to deal with. Also, the Dixie Mafia, I'm not exactly sure of what date that it was that Rex Armistead finally coined the term Dixie Mafia, which all he was trying to do is take all these individuals that were out in the world, some of them involved in moonshine, some involved in theft, safe cracking, kidnappings, murder, whatever. But they were all separate individuals. They would occasionally work together, but it wasn't like an organized mafia family from one of the major cities. Well, Armistead got this idea that maybe he could kind of incorporate the term Dixie Mafia into making all these people look like a group so that law enforcement and the news media would focus on them. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is that in Buford's time, I don't think the Dixie Mafia was really a thing yet, because all these people were still individuals that were floating around out there. Sure, they knew each other. Occasionally they had worked together. But as a mafia type family, they never were. As far as the Buford having to fight the state liners, the family members down there are open about it and telling you, yeah, they paid Buford. So how does the legend get that Buford cleaned up the state line. I can't find a place he shut down. I can't find a place that, or a single state liner that he sent to prison. The Hathcock families, they're openly saying, yeah, we paid him. So that changes the story for me quite a bit. But at any rate, that's what you have in the Moonshine story. Yep, there was a lot of it made. Buford is said to have, when he became sheriff, of course, he was accepting payoffs from a lot of the clubs and beer joints, whatever. But he was also accepting payoffs from the moonshiners. And a lot of people are on the Facebook page and say, that their relatives had to pay Buford. If they didn't, those were the stills that Buford shut down. So it's really an interesting story. And one of the things that people have to do when they start getting into checking all this, like I say, I was a huge fan of Buford Pusser when that movie came out. Walking Tall in 1973 was a big thing to me. After you get to looking into it and you start trying to dig for the real facts, you learn there's very much a hidden story there. And so the best thing I can offer to people is to tell them, forget everything you think you know about Buford Pusser, the state line mob, and everything. And just start all over. Start doing your own research. Like I try to verify everything that I'm told. I've heard a lot of stories come out that I've never mentioned on my Facebook page because people will tell you, well, this happened, but there's no way to verify it. So what's the use of bringing it up in conversation if you can't prove it one way or the other, or at least show where it actually leads into another part of the story? So forget everything you think you know. Just start all over. Start from the very first thing and work your way through the story. That's all that I did. People wondering why that I'm doing the videos along with the book, and it's just because I'm interested in the true story. And I'm going to be shutting this thing down now, but I'll leave you with the thought that I've always had, about the story and about learning the truth. And that's simply that the truth has no agenda. It's inanimate. It's not a living thing, but it's something that if you follow it, you'll finally get to where the story takes you. So with that, I'll get off here. I appreciate everyone being here for this. We'll be doing another one again very soon. And if you have any questions, again, visit my Facebook page, ask the questions there. I'll be glad to put them on here, answer them as honestly as I can. And also, if you're interested in trying to see everything as it happened in a timeline, I do have my book, Buford Pusser, The Other Story. It's on Amazon. It's also out there on eBay. You can buy it in either place. But again, I'd appreciate it if you'd visit my Facebook page and watch these videos. You'll learn the real story. Until next time, have a good one.